What's up, guys? Welcome back to the world record axle vlog. This morning is Monday morning, and we are going to get ready with some sodium-free food. So I'm going to show you how to remove some of the sodium from meats, and that's going to be primarily what I'm eating after the no sodium point. I'm going to be reducing my carbohydrate consumption, and that's going to aid in flushing my body of excess water. So if you look over here, we got a pan. It's already heating up. We got 3 pounds of turkey. I'm just gonna take that, toss it in right here, put that in the trash. And there's a very particular way I like to cook this. So in order for us to get the sodium out of this, we need to make sure that they're very small particle size. So I take water, about 2 pints of hot water. Depending on your pan size, you're going to use more or less or whatever you need. You might have to use less meat. And the way that I do this is I usually like to take a spatula, or a wooden spatula is even better than this. And I like to press. And you can see how it makes very fine particulate in solution. And this is going to be how the water actually washes out a lot of the salt content in here. And when we get this all the way smashed up, we're going to let it boil, and the water is going to cook the meat. And this should look like a paste, so I'm just going to keep rambling a little bit while I'm doing this so you can see what the end product looks like. Really what I'm doing is I'm smashing it flat, and then I come back with the spatula and I'm cutting it up. And once this is all cooked, we're going to take it to a strainer, we're going to strain it, we're going to wash it out with hot water, and then we're actually going to throw it back in the pan with additional hot water and rinse it out really well. And I'm going to show you guys that process. You're going to see what that looks like and how the water is kind of hazy. You can see the water is hazy right now. That's actually largely due to the salt that's in here. So we're going to be taking that out, and each successive wash is going to remove more and more of the sodium. I usually just wash it twice. Twice is good enough. If you want to be really careful, just wash it till it's clear, or one more than when it's clear. I'm using turkey because it sits well in my body. I actually get heartburn from beef, and but the meat that I'm using is not particularly special. And I'm also going to show you guys how I like to prep chicken, because I'm going to take some chicken along as well. And so if you could come up here, I'm going to show you the consistency real quick. You can see it's kind of like a paste, but what's going to happen is this is going to cook down, and it's going to look like particles like this. It's going to be really fine, and this is already all washed, so you can see how they're very small. And I'm going to weigh this out in plastic bags, and that's going to be the pre-prepped meals. So this is about the halfway point. You can see it starting to boil and bubble up. It's important that you break this up, because you can see on the underside it's already cooked. But we want those tiny pieces, right? So you can't just walk away from this. You should be actively kind of stirring this and making it move. And you can see how small the particles get if we're doing that correctly. But if we don't do that correctly, you can see that there's larger chunks, right? And we're concerned with very small particle size because we're trying to essentially wash the cooked meat free from any sodium or salt. A quick look at what this looks like when it's about 3/4 done. You can see the water is still kind of foggy and murky. I like to cook it until the water goes a little bit more clear. So I'm just kind of showing you the steps. And here is a quick look at what it looks like when it's done. The water is clear, or a bit more clear. You can see it's not murky, but there's still a layer of fat on top of it. So still been working it around, and we're going to take this to the strainer. So we got our meat cooked, and we're going to take it from the stove, check the bicep, over to the strainer. I'm going to show you guys how I like to wash this out, and then put it back in the pan and mix it back up. So we got hot water going. You don't really have to put this back on the stove if you don't want to. I like to just make sure that there's a little bit of water that hits all of it, because we're going to do a pretty good rinse in just a moment. So we're dumping that back in here, and we're going to fill this up. And as we're filling it up, we're trying to break up all of those pieces, all the particulate. If you really, really wanted to be particular, this would be the time to go over to the stove and start mixing this up. I'm just going to do it right here for time's sake, and because I don't think there's a huge difference since we're using hot water. That's probably coming out at like 160 or something. It's like 130 maybe, I don't know. It's not unbearable. So I'm just going to break this up a little bit. If you come closer, you can see that the water is murky. So I believe that to be largely due to sodium and fats that were adhered to the outside of the meat, and in the residual fluids on the inside of the cooked meat. So right now we're looking to flush that out. I actually think I'm gonna strain this one, and then I'm gonna do one more hot, and then I'm gonna rinse it out. So I'm gonna toss this back in. And again, we're just removing all the sodium because we're doing the sodium cut. This is not something you gotta do like every time you cook meat. It's overkill for that. There's not a ton of sodium in this. It's just I'm going to be eating a ton of this. So it would add up on me. And it's going to be close to the only thing that I'm eating for, a solid day and a half. So. I think right now would be a good time to also note that I have removed caffeine consumption from my diet a couple days ago, and the reason for that is I'm going to be utilizing caffeine anhydrous or anhydrous caffeine for the purpose of a general diuretic. So I want to be very sensitive to that, and that's going to actually amplify the diuretic effects of the caffeine. So we're going to turn this on and let it boil, strain it, rinse it one more time, and then I'm going to save you guys the time, and we're just going to pick up on packaging. Alright, so my apologies. I already weighed them out, but I have a food scale right here set to ounces and some plastic bags. I simply scoop them out of the strainer after washing with cold water, so I do my last wash with cold water. The trick on that is to wash the meat and then put your hand underneath the entire strainer and wait for the cold water to come through in all of the sections. Then you know it's cold, then you won't get massive condensation in there, and then you'll be a-okay.